This is Hashtag History episode 117. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And I am extra excited about this week's episode for a million reasons.
Okay.
For one, as you all know, I was a history major in college, specifically American history, specifically Civil War and Reconstruction era history. I know that's like crazy exciting to you.
So exciting.
It's like so exciting
to hear about this.
I know. Yeah, I can really tell. Again, like we talked about this briefly in last week's episode, I don't know if you all can always hear the sarcasm in Leah's voice, but I can see it since I get to sit across from her and watch her face. That was sarcasm, in case any of you were not sure.
I love you.
Thanks. I just hate this.
I love learning about these things from you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I love learning about European history from you specifically, too.
Hate it in all other contexts.
Okay, I actually feel really special that you said that, so thank you. Well, get ready to learn a lot today from me. I have always been fascinated by this particular time period and how it truly changed our nation and how different things might have been had Lincoln not been assassinated. How different would Reconstruction have been had Lincoln still been alive and able to proceed with his Reconstruction plan? I'm not saying it would have been perfect and that we would be so much further along than we are now, but I am just forever fascinated to know what those differences would have been.
Totally.
The other reason I'm so excited to cover this week's topic is for more recent, more relevant reasons. Impeachment is a hot topic.
And
it should be.
Yeah.
It's something we should all be well informed about. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard people say, Bill Clinton wasn't impeached, Donald Trump wasn't impeached, because they weren't removed from office. But that's not what impeachment means.
No.
Impeachment is not removal from office. And so I'm really looking forward to having the opportunity and the space to thoroughly dive into the impeachment process, Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution.
Joy.
You're jazzed.
So jazzed.
And why it is so important that we do understand it. Now, with that long-winded intro, what are we talking about this week? This week on the podcast, we are talking about the impeachment of Andrew Johnson, the 17th president of the United States of America, marking the first impeachment of a U.S. president. Johnson had a particularly unpopular presidency, having been thrust into the position following Abraham Lincoln's assassination. Many in Congress opposed his Reconstruction plan and his overall practices. They passed a bill called the Tenure of Office Act in March of 1867, which essentially restricted the president's power by prohibiting him from removing certain officials without the approval of the Senate. So when Johnson did just that by attempting to remove Secretary of War Edwin Stanton from the cabinet, not once, but twice, without the proper approvals, the House of Representatives brought forth articles of impeachment for Andrew Johnson. However, failing to meet the 2/3 majority required to convict and officially remove Johnson from office, he would continue to serve out the rest of his presidential term. Because impeachment, everyone, does not mean removal from office.
Say it again. Impeachment does not mean removal from office.
Will you look at what my next thing is? That's going to be our mantra. Let's make it into a song.
No, I literally didn't read that far.
In my script that I put together was going to challenge Leah to turn it into a song.
What the
Impeachment does not mean removal from office. I like this. Yeah. That's our mantra. So hopefully that helps it to stick in everyone's minds by putting it to music.
Yeah.
I am so glad that moment just happened.
I'm not joking. I didn't read that far ahead.
Organically happened. That was amazing.
It was organic.
Now, speaking of songs, I say we just hit our podcast theme song so that we can get right into this cocktail and then right into this week's story.
Roll the tape.
Roll the tape, editor. That's Leah.
Me. Roll the tape.
Future Leah, roll tape. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah. And this is Hashtag History, the podcast for both history nerds and history haters alike,
where we dive into history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption.
All right. Firstly, let us give a big thanks to this week's cocktail sponsor, the Luminol Podcast Gals.
Oh,
You all are way too kind for sponsoring multiple cocktails this season.
yeah.
So thank
this is
you.
not the first time that we've thanked them already this season.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You too can sponsor a cocktail, and I'm speaking to you. You. Driving in your car right now. You.
You working from home right now.
You can sponsor a cocktail and get a shout out on an upcoming episode by simply checking out the Support Us tab on our website at #history-pod.com. And there's also other ways you can support us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there are.
Mm-hmm. All right. So this week we are... Yeah, there's lots of other ways. We have our Patreon, which for $1 a month, you get all the goods. You get behind the scenes content. We do weekly #hangout episodes. You get 15% off merch. We mail you cards and stickers. And that's just a really, really helpful way to support the podcast.
Yeah, and then there's also a link to donate to us on Anchor.
Yes, that's also a possibility. And another way that supports us, which this is like a huge way, is by checking out our merch and buying our merch, especially now as we're headed into the holiday season. If you're interested in getting some
gift.
Yeah, buying a gift, getting some #history gear for a family member or a friend. We love to see that. It does go to financially support the podcast, but also we just love seeing you guys wearing our merch.
Yeah. So this week we're talking about presidential impeachment.
Which does not mean removal from office.
Which, again, impeachment does not mean removal from office. Okay. So I wanted to be... Oh my God. We're going to do that 12 times throughout this episode. So I wanted to be punny. Okay. So this is a peach mint margarita.
Wait, did you come up with that yourself?
No.
Oh, that is hilarious. I didn't make the connection at all until you said the words.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hilarious.
Good
I love
stuff.
it. I love it.
So this contains 8 ounces of frozen peach slices, a tablespoon of lemon juice, a tablespoon of lime juice, 3 tablespoons of simple syrup. We also added a little agave nectar. You could probably just completely substitute out the simple syrup for agave nectar. A dash of salt, whatever that means. A 4th cup of tequila. Whoa. 2 tablespoons of orange liqueur, and then 5 to 6 leaves of fresh mint.
5 to 6 to 12.
5 to 6, 12, 25, whatever. And
The
then
whole package.
it says a cup of ice. We probably put a little less than a cup of ice, and then it's a blended margarita.
Yes.
So the mint makes the color not the most appetizing.
It does turn it into Shrek green.
But I'm actually quite excited.
I am very excited.
Okay.
Peach and mint. How can you go wrong?
Yeah.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. I'm kind of hesitating to take a drink only because
The color.
the
Flavor's really good.
flavor's very good.
Very intense flavor. Like, not in a bad way. Like, it's a lot.
What is it that's coming forward so much?
It's weird. There's, like, nothing specific. They're all working together.
They really are. Yeah. What are you putting this one at?
9.
I was going to go 9 too, and really the only markdown is the color for me. 'cause
Yeah.
the color is,
It's a little off-putting.
it's in fact really off-putting
Yeah.
to where it took me a while to take the first sip because I didn't want to.
Yeah. And we did 2 separate batches just because we couldn't fit them all in my little blender. And hers definitely turned out greener than mine.
Because I'm assuming way more mint than you did. I put a lot of
Yeah,
mint.
I probably put like 7 or 8
I
leaves.
put at a minimum 12. That's not an exaggeration. I counted 12.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
This is really good
And
stuff.
I would actually highly recommend that agave nectar instead of simple syrup.
And I feel like pull out the tequila, this would be an amazing like breakfast smoothie.
Absolutely.
Oh, take out the tequila but leave in the triple sec.
Oh, yeah.
So you just need just a
get
little
a little bit of a buzz in the morning.
a small buzz. So
All right.
good.
The peach mint smoothie, margarita smoothie. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, as we always do with every episode of the podcast, we got to dive into the nerdy history and background and context to really understand this week's story. And lucky for me, that nerdy history we are diving into this week is presidential history.
Your
my
strong
favorite.
suit. Yeah.
My strong suit. And where this presidential background begins is with Abraham Lincoln, my favorite.
Your strong suit. I don't know.
Exactly.
She just really likes him, guys.
I just really do. I won't harp on the Civil War too much. We all know what it was.
Generally, they don't go, yeah, we know about the Civil War.
We know about the Civil War. It's not what we're focusing on today, guys. What I am actually going to focus more of our energies on today is the period of time that came in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, the Reconstruction era. Now, like I said in the introduction, I am not saying that everything would be so much better nowadays had Lincoln been able to follow through on his own Reconstruction plan, but I am just so curious about how different things might have been. Lincoln's plan for Reconstruction, the period of time in which the United States was recovering and reconstructing from the devastation and divide of the Civil War, was a fairly lenient one. He wanted to bring the country back together as quickly and as peacefully as possible. He issued a proclamation of amnesty and Reconstruction in 1863, in which his plan was to welcome other Southern states back into the Union completely so long as they met his 10% plan. The 10% plan stated that so long as at least 10% of a state's voters swore allegiance to the Union, the whole state could be readmitted into the Union.
That's very lenient.
Crazy lenient.
Yeah.
Additionally, Lincoln planned for all Confederates, with the exception of those that were high-ranking in the military and government, to be granted full pardons. He would then allow the states to draft their own constitutions and would relatively leave them alone and even help them protect their personal property. While this was a lenient plan, most Republicans in Congress agreed with it and just wanted to see a swift end to the war.
Yeah, like we talked about in our recent Civil War Glow episode, the Civil War was rough for everyone involved. It affected every single person living in the United States at the time.
Yeah, and so, I mean, Lincoln's goal was just to get it over with as quickly as possible and to bring everyone back together as swiftly as possible. Unfortunately, with Lincoln's untimely assassination in April of 1865, he was never able to fully execute his plan. It was left to his vice president to finish the job. Andrew Johnson had been an interesting choice of vice president, only taking the position roughly a month before Lincoln's assassination. Johnson had formerly been a senator for Tennessee, and despite his Southern roots and the fact that Tennessee joined the Confederacy early in the war, Johnson himself stayed with the Union, making him the only senator from a Confederate state to not resign his seat despite the state's secession from the Union.
I didn't know that.
Isn't that pretty fascinating? He stayed in Washington as a senator, and Lincoln rewarded him for that with other political positions as well as eventually with the vice presidency. So in 1864, he was selected as the vice president, running mate for Lincoln for pretty obvious reasons. He was a Southern Democrat guy with a dedication to the Union. I mean, it's the best of both worlds for the end of the war and the start of Reconstruction.
And honestly, a good face to put on this whole thing about like, look at, he's a guy from the South rooting for the Union. We're working together.
That's exactly what he was.
Yeah.
He was an appeal to white Southerners, not too scary to them just because of his history and stuff, but then to Republicans, not too scary to them either because they didn't think he was going to like defect or anything.
Yeah.
When Johnson took over the presidency, Reconstruction was the largest objective. And this isn't to say that he didn't follow Lincoln's plan for Reconstruction. He followed much of it, but where Lincoln provided leniency, Johnson provided full-on freedom. He allowed for several former Confederate leaders to return to their positions of power within their local governments.
Oh, yeah.
He issued tens of thousands of pardons, including to high-ranking Confederate soldiers and leaders, which, if you'll remember, that was not part of Lincoln's plan. He would even save up some of his last pardons to grant to no one other than former Confederate President Jefferson Davis and to Dr. Samuel Mudd, the doctor that had helped John Wilkes Booth with his broken leg while he was on the run after killing Lincoln. Probably largest of all was the lack of protections that Johnson's plan afforded to recently freed Black Americans. Because of the people he allowed to return to positions of power, these people passed what became known as Black Codes. These Black Codes and Jim Crow laws were essentially slavery without the title of slavery.
Yeah.
They forced freedmen into yearly contracts for cheap labor, and if they rejected these arrangements, they could be arrested and eventually forced into unpaid labor. It's slavery, but by a different name. It also restricted their rights to property, voting, business, and really created the roots of segregation throughout the states. I hope to one day have the opportunity to really dive into Black Codes and Jim Crow laws and the ways in which slavery didn't end even after slavery ended.
Right.
But that's for another episode, another time, just to like really quickly sum up how Johnson approached Reconstruction, specifically in relation to the rights of Black Americans. I'll just read you a quote of his here. He said, quote, "This is a country for white men, and as long as I am president, it shall be a government for white men," unquote.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's really unfortunate.
It is.
I now learning all that, because I didn't know the details of all this. I see where you're coming from when you're like, I really wish I could have seen how Lincoln did it.
Just to see.
And
I know Lincoln was so lenient, and I'm not, as much as I've studied Lincoln and stuff, I'm not a certified Lincoln historian. There are people that can speak to this so much more than I can and have studied him so much more than I have, that they probably have a better idea of how he would have led things just based on
his policies
and his patterns and stuff. But I think just from the little bit that we've talked about here, would his leniency have ended up biting him in the butt? Like, would he also have ended up letting former Confederate leaders take back positions? Even if he did, I do strongly believe that there would have, even if minorly, been more rights for freed men.
Right.
Like, that was one of his objectives was, he fought to end slavery. He was going to follow through on that.
Yeah.
And not let this system replicate itself again, but by a different name.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why this particular period in history is so fascinating to me, because it's a through line of where we are now. Had we actually used Reconstruction for what it was intended for, to further push the 13th and 14th Amendments and actually offer freedoms to everyone, would we be dealing with some of the things that we deal with now? Yeah. This time period set us back.
Oh, absolutely.
We got rid of slavery just to reinstitute slavery, but under
by
a different name.
Yeah.
It's just, that's why this period is so crazy fascinating to me and so
I'll give
horrible.
You that.
Thank you. Just because it really does apply to every, modern day.
Oh, absolutely.
It's that through line.
The issues we see, you can trace like you said, a through line directly back to this.
If they had been resolved 150 years ago, would we have seen the civil rights movement? Like, it's just crazy.
Would we have needed it?
Would we have needed it?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm Howard Dory.
And I'm Jess Dory, and we host Plotting Through the Presidents,
an irreverent history podcast that explores lesser-known stories of the founders and their families.
Things your teachers did not tell you.
Because they might have been fired. We combine deeply researched narrative dives with fresh, fun, marital banter.
Well, you're the one diving. I'm not privy to the stories ahead of time, so I'm like the flabbergasted audience surrogate.
So flabbergasted.
We cover more than just presidents. We talk about some incredible women like Anne Royale and Phyllis Wheatley.
And other founders like Benjamin Rush and Gouverneur Morris, two fascinating men, neither of whom I'd trust with a sharp object.
No.
We've got everything.
Myths.
Mysteries.
Scandals.
Spiritualism.
Romance.
Rivalries.
Murder.
Creepy toy possums.
What now?
Oh, just you wait.
Ooh.
Check out Plotting Through the Presidents everywhere you get your podcast and at plodpod.com.
And hit that follow button and let us flabbergast you.
Naturally, Johnson's Reconstruction plan did not go over well with the more radical Republicans in Congress. And this is just a quick reminder. I'm sure all of you know this, but just a quick reminder about how much political parties have changed over time. At this time, it was the Republican Party that was pushing for the end of slavery, the unification of the states, rights for freedmen, and so on. Johnson regularly vetoed legislation that the Republican-controlled Congress attempted to pass in efforts to protect freed persons' rights during the Reconstruction era. Despite these disagreements, many congressional Republicans attempted to work with Johnson and reach some kind of compromise. That was until he vetoed the Freedmen's Bureau Bill in 1866, a bill that attempted to establish a bureau that could provide things like food, clothing, medical supplies, shelter, and so on to displaced Southerners, which would, of course, also include freed Black Americans.
All of this is making me wonder, what his intentions were from the beginning. Because, was he just playing a long game here? What is happening?
I think he's just a oddly complex person where I think you can have, deeply rooted racist sentiments, like this is a country for white men, but also still want to preserve the nation. He didn't want to secede.
Right.
He didn't want to split the country apart.
Right.
I think both things can be true at the same time. You are a racist person that doesn't believe in rights for anyone but
white
people that
men,
look like you. And also not want your country to split apart.
Yeah.
After he rejected that bill, they were like, hell no. And they passed the Tenure of Office Act despite Johnson's veto, which aimed at prohibiting the president from removing certain government officials without the approval of Congress. Essentially, what radical Republicans were attempting to do was ensure that Johnson couldn't create an echo chamber and surround himself entirely with like-minded individuals that would go along with whatever he said.
Weird.
If only podcasts were a visual medium and you could see Leah's face. A particular enemy of Johnson's was Secretary of War Edwin Stanton. In fact, the Tenure of Office Act had been written with Stanton specifically in mind. Stanton had served in the Lincoln administration and was very closely aligned with the radical Republicans in Congress. And so, in the fall of 1867, Johnson finally made his move. He suspended Stanton from his position and appointed Ulysses S. Grant to the position of the Secretary of War. When Congress reconvened, they overruled the suspension and returned Stanton to his position. However, on February 21st, 1868, Johnson did it again. He told Stanton that he was removed from his position and that he was bringing in the not as popular Lorenzo Thomas to take his place. In response to this, Stanton quite literally locked himself inside of his office and refused to leave.
I mean, I feel like I probably would do something similar too.
just literally
be like,
refusing
be
to
like,
leave.
dude, like what you're doing is literally illegal.
Yeah, it's illegal.
Come at me, bro.
Come at me through my locked door.
Yeah.
For the House of Representatives, they knew what they had to do. They had already been considering drafting articles of impeachment after the first dismissal of Stanton, but now, after this egregious second time, and therefore, on February 24th, 1868, Johnson was formally impeached. And remember, everyone, impeachment does not mean removal from office. So what does impeachment mean? Specifically in context to the President of the United States. We're, of course, going to dig into the U.S. Constitution for all that information. So fun. But actually, before we do that, the next source that I am using is from an article written by yours truly back in 2019 when Donald Trump was impeached for the first time. I wrote a whole article for a local newspaper that really broke down impeachment, the common misconceptions, the whole process, and the end results. So, like, truly major thank you to past Rachel for already doing all of this research.
No homework needed.
No homework needed, and I don't feel bad for essentially copying and pasting because it's my words.
Right.
So if anyone calls me out for plagiarizing, I'm plagiarizing myself.
Right.
Here.
Is that really plagiarizing?
Is it really plagiarizing? And I cited my source, which is me. So truly, like, it was so helpful when I was putting together this episode. I'm like, oh, I've already done all this before.
God. You're like, this feels familiar.
Oh, thank God. Article 2, Section 4 of the United States Constitution reads that, quote, the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, unquote. We'll break down what all of that means, but I want to, again, just address the common misconception surrounding impeachment and that impeachment does not mean removal from office. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard people say that it is fake news that Trump was impeached because he was not removed from office.
Right.
We have even faced some of that disagreement ourselves with a This Day in History post that I made maybe a year or two ago about Bill Clinton's impeachment, in which someone commented on the post and said that Clinton was not impeached because he was not removed from office. They just said, like, you have your information incorrect. He was not impeached. And I was like, he was impeached. And they're like, no, he wasn't. He got to continue to be president. I was like, that doesn't mean impeachment does not mean removal from office.
Jesus. Okay.
So impeachment does not mean removal from office. Rather, impeachment is the process by which the integrity or validity of a government official is called into question.
Right.
So the way that I like to think of it is thinking of impeachment synonymously as in criminal court when you are investigated and charged with a crime.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're convicted of it.
Right.
Say I was charged with stealing a pack of gum from the liquor store.
Would that really be what you're stealing from the liquor store, though?
Yeah, of course. Double bubble gum. But that doesn't mean I'm going to for sure be convicted of it and face the consequences for it, right? Like I still have to undergo a trial for that to be determined.
Right.
Just that process of my being investigated and charged and going to trial for it is like my version of impeachment.
Right.
I've been impeached.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens with impeachment. As the U.S. Constitution dictates, an impeachment inquiry is a 3-step process. Firstly, the responsibility resides with Congress to investigate the allegations brought forward. Secondly, the House of Representatives must then pass the articles of impeachment by majority. Only if the articles receive a majority vote has the president officially been impeached. And finally, the president is placed on trial before the Senate with the Chief Justice of the United States presiding. Much like any other trial, the president will have his or her defense attorneys there, while the United States will have its prosecutors. The Senate must reach a 2/3 vote, and only if this 2/3 vote is met will the president be removed from office. But even if the president is not removed from office, he or she was still impeached.
Right. I get it.
I know you do. I'm not talking to you. Even though I'm looking directly at you and wagging my finger,
Yes.
I'm not actually talking to you.
Don't take it personally.
No, don't take it personally, even though I'm like screaming at you. The same thing over and over. Sorry, you're just the unfortunate victim
It's okay.
of the situation.
I'll take it.
So let's now discuss what the terms of impeachment are. We already know what treason and bribery are, but what exactly constitutes as high crimes and misdemeanors?
Yeah.
This phrase has left many wondering for years. In fact, this particular phrase baffled even the earliest Americans as they worked to craft the U.S. Constitution and the official basis for impeachment. The Founding Fathers considered various possibilities, but the Constitutional Convention eventually agreed upon high crimes and misdemeanors as the catch-all term that the other offenses of treason or bribery missed.
See, this is like people that are like, it's not explicitly stated in the Constitution.
I know. It's a catch-all term.
There's a reason they made it vague.
Yes. Yeah. If you said, I mean, you don't want it to be too particular.
Yeah.
Some might wonder why this phrase, high crimes and misdemeanors, was one that was selected. And it's because it was one that was familiar to the Founding Fathers, as it had been used for centuries, dating back to 1386, when the English Parliament used the very phrase of high crimes and misdemeanors to impeach officials of the crown.
Mm-hmm.
This accusation could relate to a wide range of offenses, such as finances allocated for Parliament being used for personal use, appointing officials that were not qualified, or hindering qualified candidates from becoming officials, disobeying Parliament orders, and more.
Mm-hmm.
High crimes and misdemeanors could mean virtually anything, so long as it was proven that the official had abused his power in some way while in his official capacity.
Right.
Okay, so what's the end result of an impeachment? After the trial, if the president is found guilty by the Senate, he would be removed from office.
Dun, dun, dun.
Finally, the words. Removed from office. And the vice president would become the next president of the United States. As we already know, this has never happened in American history.
Mm-hmm.
We know of Andrew Johnson's impeachment, which we're just about to break down. I briefly mentioned Bill Clinton's impeachment, and Donald Trump was also impeached twice, the only president to be impeached twice. However, in all of these cases, they were all acquitted by the Senate when the 2/3 vote could not be met. And after they were acquitted, they each respectively completed their terms in office. Contrary to popular belief, former President Richard Nixon was never impeached. Rather, Nixon resigned from the office of the president as a means of avoiding impeachment. The last thing to leave you with on the more general topic of impeachment, before we return more specifically to Johnson's impeachment, is that an impeachment trial is a political one, not a criminal one. Even if a president is found guilty and removed from office, it's not a sure thing that they will also be served with fines, jail time, or other civil or criminal repercussions. Moral of the story is that impeachment does not mean removal from office.
Okay.
Now, back to Johnson. 11 articles of impeachment were brought against him for his high crimes and misdemeanors, 8 of which specifically related to his violation of the Tenure of Office Act. This draft was passed by a 126 to 47 vote.
That's not like a tight margin there.
I'd say that's majority. The trial began on March 5th, 1868, and would last roughly 2 months. Johnson's attorney argued that Johnson had not violated the Tenure of Office Act because that act only applies to persons appointed by the current administration. So to explain that more clearly, Johnson's attorney stated that Stanton had been a Lincoln appointee, not a Johnson appointee, and he was therefore within his rights to remove him from office without congressional approval. That's what attorneys are for. Find the loopholes.
I know.
There were some rumors that Johnson was placing bribes behind the scenes to ensure acquittal. He promised to not veto future Reconstruction bills, to allow radical Republicans in the government, and he maybe even paid off some of the representatives. Whether this is true or not, when the Senate voted on Article 11 on May 16th, 1868, they fell short of the 2/3 majority by 1 vote.
Oh, shit.
Yes.
1 vote?
They adjourned for 10 days, then returned and voted on Articles 2 and 3, which also failed by the exact same margin.
Wow.
With these results, the Senate voted to adjourn, not voting on the remaining articles.
That's a clear pattern. It's clearly going to be the same.
1 vote.
Yeah.
Johnson would continue to serve out the remainder of his term and would continue to veto Reconstruction bills, though Congress would override these vetoes.
He was probably just bitter at this point. He was like, F you.
He remained popular with white Southerners, but largely unpopular otherwise.
Wow.
The country was ready to move in a different direction. Johnson was voted out with the election of 18th President of the United States, Ulysses S. Grant, in 1869. It was customary for the outgoing and incoming presidents to ride in the same carriage
Or helicopter
on the outgoing president's final day in office, but Grant refused to do this.
Yeah.
In response to this, Johnson refused to attend Grant's inauguration. None of which sounds familiar or recent or relevant. Or
this doesn't ring a bell.
No, they would never do something like this nowadays.
No.
Anyway, we really could spend forever on this topic because there's so many side tangents, and you all know this is my jam, and I really could be here forever.
Right.
But I think I will just leave it at that. And one final thing to leave you all with. Impeachment does not mean removal from office. Come again. Impeachment does not mean removal from office. Last time. Impeachment does not. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Hashtag History.
All sources used to put together this episode can be found on our website at hashtaghistory-pod.com.
Subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use, share about us with your family and friends, and then give us a rate and review.
And be sure to check us out on our socials. We're on Instagram at #history_podcast, and we are also on TikTok. You can check us out there at #history, all one word.
And come join us over on Patreon, where for $1 a month, you can help support our books and booze supply. You also get access to some behind-the-scenes content, weekly Hashtag Hangout episodes, an automatic 15% off all merchandise, and we mail you cards and stickers.
Sure do.
We sure do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. I felt like that was kind of a doll sound. I was like,
Look, there's a spike.
yeah,
you can see
works.
it.
It's still better than mine. Johnson had a particularly unpopular presidency.
Ooh, say that 5 times fast.
I know, right? I couldn't even say it one time. Slowly. One time slowly was difficult.
Yeah. I'm still just holding a handful of chips.
And you haven't touched them at all.
Okay.
From office.
Oh. What's that?
We both sound like we had orc.
Seriously, why did we both make O sounds afterwards?
I loved it. I like our song.
I do too.
I like our song. Hopefully that sticks in your mind forever.
I think anyone who listens to this, I think they'll walk away understanding one thing in particular.
And that is
impeachment
does not mean removal
from bed?
Just listen to the episode again.